I'm Stephen Goakes. I'm the Managing Director of Natgen Group, and I'm talking to you today about Natgen Investment Trust SP24, which is based on a medical asset on the Gold Coast in Queensland. Everything that we do has the same basic principles behind it. So we look at what is the philosophy behind property investment. And the one thing is we try and have investments for people who need somewhere to be for some reason. Now that's either to work or to play or to go to get medical treatment or in industrial settings to go and shop. There's all different things that people need to do. And we look for properties that are going to have long-term value in those areas. So the old adage of location is very important, but it has to be nuanced about what location actually means. So particularly in relation to the Gold Coast, we've recently taken an option on a cancer clinic in Southport CBD. In looking at that in relation to value over time, we looked at what the needs in this sort of space, in the health space. And sadly, the requirements for cancer treatment are increasing over time, certainly as the population increases on the Gold Coast. So between the early 2020s and 2041, the government statistics indicate we're going to have over 20, probably closer to 25% population growth on the Gold Coast. So that requires at least that same amount of increase in medical services. The other thing that drives medical services, according to government statistics, and they do a lot of studies on these things, is basically the wealth of the population, and the Gold Coast has quite a relatively wealthy population compared with both Queensland and Australia, and also the age of the population. And I think it's no surprise to anyone that the Gold Coast population is an ageing population. So all those things add up to ongoing requirements for medical facilities, particularly centred around the health precincts of the Gold Coast, of which Central Southport is one of those. So the asset for SP24 is a cancer clinic, day hospital and consulting suite. So it's particularly related to chemotherapy and immunotherapy treatments, where patients have to come regularly to have infusions. So this one has a series of infusion beds where patients come and accept their chemotherapy drugs. And also there's a large consulting suite where about 6 to 8 oncologists can actually see patients during the day as well. So the day hospital is actually split into 2 sections. It also provides ancillary services such as pharmacy and more acute requirements should patients need it during their treatment. So the clinic is part of a larger building, and it's a medically focused entire building. There are other well-known medical providers in the building, and also there's a high level of car park because medical treatment areas need lots of car parks because there's people coming and going all the time. So it's on the corner of a very busy streets in the centre of Southport, and also easy to get to with lots of car parking. The tenant is Icon Cancer Therapy Group, and they have over 35 cancer clinics across the country, basically in every state, both capital city and in bigger regional areas such as the Gold Coast. They provide all types of cancer therapies, particularly on the Gold Coast. The Southport Centre is their chemotherapy and immunotherapy centre, and they also have 2 other clinics which concentrate on radiotherapy. Icon have been in this property since 2010 when they opened, with a 25-year lease. So we're now basically 15 or 16 years into a 25-year lease with 9 years left to run on the lease. It's a very attractive lease because it has 5% minimum rent increases, or CPI, whichever is the higher. The other important thing about a facility like this is it's quite specialised fit out. So a tenant that's in this type of facility is not likely to go anywhere else whilst it continues to fulfil their needs, because of the cost and specialisation of the fit out. Anyone who's been following Natgen for some time will remember that we have a series of acquisitions themes that we follow over time. So regional convenience retail, of which we've got a number of shopping centres that fulfil that role. We look at non-CBD offices, and again we have a series of office buildings in that sense. The third one is value-add industrial, which we actually have struggled to find the right asset for that, but it certainly continues to be a focus over time. And then the fourth one is what we would call specialist assets, and probably the largest type of this would be medical assets. And of course the SP24 asset fits within this specialist asset category. Now, one of the values of medical assets is, in this country, it's very much backed by government expenditure. We have a very high expenditure on medical services. Whether it's government hospitals or whether it's private services, they're still well backed by government, and thus we enjoy a very excellent healthcare system because of that. That allows groups such as ICON to flourish in this environment and provide much needed and actually vital services to augment what the government provides in the government hospitals. The asset for SP24 is a full floor within a strata title building. It makes it the largest strata lot within the building, and thus we have control of the entire space that we need for the day hospital. It does mean that in this case we have to deal with a body corporate, but the management of body corporates is well known to us because, of course, we set up a body corporate for every development trust that we create, so we fully understand the process of building and running them. The target return profile of the trust is to provide an average of 8% per annum over the term of the trust, which is our usual 5 to 6 year term. We expect the return to grow over time, but the average will be around that 8%. And because of the structure we're using, we will start with an 8% return in the first year to unit holders as well. Of course, as with all Natgen investment trusts, we pay our distributions monthly. Those familiar with Natgen Investment Trust will also be aware that there are tax advantages which relate to these types of investments. And in fact, there's 3 forms of return that we talk about with these type of investments. The first one is the monthly distribution, which is paid literally every month to investors in cash. The second one is the taxation benefits, which come from amortisation of borrowing costs and depreciation of assets within these buildings. And the third one, of course, is the potential for capital profit. And with commercial property assets, you'd expect the value of the capital of property to increase with the increase in net revenue from the property. So over time, as the revenue increases, we'd expect capital value on average to increase. Natgen will be looking to borrow 50% of the value of the property, which is common within our investment trust structure, and that will be provided by one of the big 4 Australian banks. We've currently had preliminary discussions with 2 of those banks, and we'll continue that to get the best deal for unit holders. Interest rates continues to be a hot topic with investors and of course homeowners, and we're seeing in the market at the moment the expectation that interest rates should fall a little bit into 2025 and beyond. That's what the banks and the pundits are predicting, and also what the market is showing us in the forward rates. We would expect to be able to reduce our interest rate over the term of this trust, and we will be seeking to employ hedges for the interest rates over that term. That could be anything from just a fixed rate that we enter into at the beginning of the term to even cap and collar arrangements or anything like that. We will choose the best possible interest rate hedge strategy closer to the time of settlement of the trust. When it comes to hedging, you have to pick your strategy based on the economy that you've got at the time. So in some cases you will see that in the past Natgen has decided to keep the interest rates floating, but there are times where we would see fixing interest rates to be a better solution. We're probably moving from the variable interest rate to a fixed interest rate sort of arrangement at this stage, given what's happening with interest rates in the market. And what that means is once you fix the interest rate, that's one of the greatest variabilities within your cost structure taken care of. So as your interest rate is set for a period, you've also within your leases got leasing rates increasing. So all being well, the net return from your property actually improves over those years where your interest rate costs are fixed. As always, the SP24 Trust will be managed internally within the Natgen management team, and we see that as a positive over time because it gives us an opportunity to understand fully how our tenants are going and how to improve the quality of the tenant experience. That goes from everything from small tenants within shopping centres to icon cancer clinics. The Natgen due diligence manual dictates the way that we undertake due diligence. It's very process driven, and it ensures that we get to all the issues that could be underlying a property that we don't know about to begin with. By the time investors see the opportunity, we've done due diligence on all the leases and all the legal parts of the structure. We've done due diligence on the technical aspects of the building, including structural, the mechanical and electrical services and other aspects in that sense. And also we've had the building valued, so we're able to ensure that it fits within the parameters of valuation that's required both for us but also for the banks. And a second stage of that is the due diligence that the banks do, so we can be certain that they've come to the same conclusion on a property that we have.